Imagine an old man sitting alone in his house, reading books of knights and adventures, until one day he decides to become a knight himself. That man was Don Quixote. Welcome to today's video. In this episode, we will dive deep into one of the greatest novels ever written in human history, Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, published in the year 1604. Part 1 of this masterpiece tells the story of a man who loses himself in the world of books and decides to live like the knights of old. But this is not just a comedy. It is also a reflection of human dreams, illusions, and the clash between reality and imagination. Stay with me till the end, because this is not only a story of a single man, but a story that shaped the history of literature forever. Before we enter the tale, let us step into the life of its creator. Miguel de Cervantes was born in Spain in 1547. His life was full of struggle, poverty, and hardship. He was captured by pirates, spent years in prison, and faced countless challenges. Yet, out of this difficult life, he gave birth to a story that changed world literature. When Cervantes wrote Don Quixote, Spain was passing through a golden yet troubled age. Chivalric romances, books about knights, castles, and heroic adventures were extremely popular. People loved to read about warriors who fought dragons, rescued princesses, and lived in honor. But Cervantes saw these stories as unrealistic fantasies. He wanted to write a book that would mock these old-fashioned romances while also entertaining readers. Thus, the character of Don Quixote was born. The story begins in a quiet village in La Mancha, Spain. Here lived a man named Alonso Quixano, a middle-aged gentleman of about 50 years. He was neither rich nor poor, but comfortable enough. His main passion was reading books of chivalry. He read day and night. He spent all his money buying these books. He became so obsessed that he stopped taking care of his farm, his health, and even his basic needs. Soon, his mind was so filled with fantasies that he lost the ability to see reality clearly. One day, overwhelmed by stories of knights, he decided to become a knight himself. He cleaned an old suit of armor, repaired a rusty helmet, and renamed himself Don Quixote of La Mancha. He believed he was destined to bring justice to the world, to protect the weak, and to defeat evil. But every knight needs a horse, so he chose his old, thin farm horse and gave him a majestic name, Rocinante. And every knight also needs a lady to serve as the inspiration of his adventures. Don Quixote selected a peasant woman from a nearby village and named her Dulcinea del Toboso, imagining her as a beautiful princess, even though she had no idea of his fantasy. Don Quixote now set out on his first adventure. He rode into the countryside with his armor, his horse, and his mad determination. One of his first stops was an inn, but in his imagination, the inn was not a simple roadside tavern. It was a grand castle. The innkeeper, amused by his madness, played along and knighted Don Quixote in a mock ceremony. From this point on, Don Quixote considered himself a true knight-errant. He tried to fight for justice wherever he went. But because he could not distinguish between fantasy and reality, his actions often ended in disaster. In one famous scene, he saw a group of windmills in the distance. But in his mind, they were not windmills. They were giants with long, swinging arms. He charged at them with his lance, only to be knocked to the ground when the windmill's blade struck him. This scene has become one of the most famous images in world literature. Tilting at windmills, a symbol of fighting imaginary enemies. But every knight needs a squire. Don Quixote convinced a poor farmer named Sancho Panza to join him. Sancho was promised riches, power, and even the governorship of an island. Sancho rode a donkey while following his master. Unlike Don Quixote, Sancho was practical and realistic. He often saw the truth of situations, but was loyal to his master's dreams. The dynamic between Don Quixote and Sancho Panza is the heart of the story. Don Quixote represents dreams, illusions, and idealism. Sancho represents reality, common sense, and simple wisdom. Together, they create both comedy and deep philosophical reflection. Throughout Part 1, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza face many misadventures. They encounter traders, farmers, priests, and even criminals. Don Quixote tries to fight for honor, but usually ends up beaten, mocked, or humiliated. In one episode, Don Quixote attacks a group of merchants because they refuse to admit that Dulcinea is the most beautiful woman in the world. In another, he frees a chain of prisoners, believing them to be innocent victims. But they turn against him and beat him badly. Every adventure highlights the clash between his noble illusions and the harshness of reality. Part 1 of Don Quixote is not just comedy. It is full of deep themes. It shows the battle between illusion and reality. Don Quixote sees the world not as it is, but as he imagines it. It shows the power of books, because literature can inspire, but also mislead. It shows human dreams, our desire to live a life of meaning, even if the world laughs at us. And it shows friendship, because despite the madness, Sancho Panza stays loyal, proving that friendship can bridge even the wildest differences. As Part 1 comes to a close, Don Quixote returns home, battered and bruised. His family and friends, worried about his madness, secretly burn many of his books. But even this cannot fully cure him of his obsession. Cervantes leaves the readers with both laughter and reflection. We laugh at Don Quixote's foolishness, yet we also admire his courage to dream. Through his madness, we see our own desire for a better, more meaningful life. Don Quixote, Part 1, is more than 400 years old, yet it still feels fresh and relevant today. It mocks old romances, but at the same time, it honors the eternal human spirit that seeks adventure, justice, and love. Cervantes created a character who is both ridiculous and noble, a man we laugh at, but also admire. This is why Don Quixote is considered not only the first modern novel, but also one of the greatest works of literature ever written.